Hello.
Hello, Anne. Welcome.
Hi. Good morning.
Welcome. Yes, Mandira, welcome. And Lucy, welcome. Yes, hello again, Sri Amala. Hello. Yeah, hello again, Roger. Right, so in this session, we're just due to recap the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1, verse 46 that we did last time, and then go on to chapter 6, verse 21 of the Bodhicharyavatara. So let me just set up the share screen with you. Okay, I'm doing share screen now. Yeah, welcome back, Paladin. So you should have in front of you Bhagavad Gita 146.
Yes.
Very good. So I'll just read this verse through once more. And then anyone who didn't get a chance to recite it last time, yes, welcome, Dominique. Anyone who didn't get a chance to recite it last time can do so now. So, yadi mam apratikaramashastram shastrapanayah dhartarashtra rane hanyus tanme kshemataram bhavet. If me, unresisting, unarmed, those with arms and those with weapons in their hands, weapon-handed, those Dhartarashtra, those Dhritarashtrans, Rane in battle, Hanyus were to kill. Tan me kshemataram bhavet, that for me would be bhavet kshemataram, more easeful, a better outcome. So any questions that you have, please ask now, and after that we'll move on to anybody who didn't get a chance to recite last time can do it this time.
Oh, James.
Yes, Anne, please.
I just wanted to add a little note about where you say the Bodhisattva Vajrapani. So he's also in the Pali Suttas as a protector rather than a bodhisattva.
What state is he a bodhisattva as well as a protector, or are they? Welcome back, Teresa. Or are they two separate statuses?
In the Vajra, in the Tibetan Buddhist system, he's a bodhisattva, and in the Pali system, he's just a protector with a long iron stick.
Is Vajra.
Yes, if you don't answer the question that the Buddha asks after the third time, you'll get
Oh,
that.
goodness me, I remember. Yes, goodness me, there was quite a severe penalty there, wasn't there?
Yeah.
If you fail, I forget what it's one of the earliest suttas in the Dika Nikaya, I think, but it may be
Ambata.
maybe is the Ambata Sutta, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now that was, I thought, not really a terribly Buddhist approach to it. But ask a question he doesn't quite want to answer. Ask a second time, he's a bit shy about answering. I'm going to ask a third time, and then if you don't answer, this Vajrapani is going to split your head into, I forget, was it 7 pieces?
7. Yeah, 7 pieces.
With his Vajra. Which I mean, I hope that was a later invention, that the Buddha really wouldn't have expressed himself in that way.
You should try the technique with us, James.
Let me try it. Yes, I mean, sadly,
would focus our minds on doing our homework, wouldn't it?
It would. Sadly, I'd have to. I'm not quite sure how I can do it remotely. If it was a face-to-face class, it would be much easier, of course. But to do it remotely, I have to go a virtual head splitting.
No, you just call on Vajrapani to do it for you.
Call on Vajrapani, of course. I wouldn't have to do it. Wouldn't do my own dirty work like that. This Vajra. Can be it has these various multiple, like the thunderbolt and also the diamond. What does Monia Williams say about it? Hang on, let me call up. Yeah, so here we are. You see the Vajra, hard or mighty one, thunderbolt, especially that of Indra. So originally a thunderbolt then. And then a diamond, because thought to be as hard as the thunderbolt. Okay, so originally thunderbolt and then the diamond. And in Tibetan, do you know Tibetan, Anne? Okay.
I don't, just in English translated.
Okay, so in Tibetan, I don't know Tibetan, just a tiny little bit studied, but Vajra, the Tibetan equivalent is Dorje. I'm sure many of you will know that word, Dorje. And the Tibetan word for a place or a town or a city is Ling, that is in Samye Ling, places like that. The equivalent of Pura, you see, in Sanskrit. So if you have Vajrapura, Thunderboltville, or Diamondville, that is in Tibetan Dorjiling, which we know as Darjeeling. So our Darjeeling, with our Darjeeling tea and all the rest of it, is actually a Tibetan word, Dorjiling, and in Sanskrit Vajrapura. So anybody who didn't have a go at reciting this verse last time and would like to do it this time round, now is your chance. Yes, okay, Lucy. Please come in, Lucy.
Yadi mam apratikaram ashastram shastra panayah dartarastra rane hanyus tame kshemataram bhavet.
Very good, very nice.
Thank you.
Yes, Roger, please come in.
Better have a go. Yadimam pratikaram ashastram shastra panayaha dartarashtra rane hanyus tanme kshemataram bhavet.
Very good. The kshemataram bhavet, kshemataram bhavet.
Kshemataram.
Right. Why does Hanyu become hanyus, Roger? Writing the word on its own will be hanyu, but there it's hanyus.
Well, that's probably Sandy, isn't it?
It is a rule of Sandhi.
Yeah.
So whenever you get a visarga followed by a ta, then it changes to an s, ta or ta. And equally, if the next word begins with a cha, if the next word begins with a cha, then it becomes a sh. So if it were, for example, hanyucha would be hanyushcha, hanyushcha. And equally, tat me, by Sandhi, the final tat before a following m just changes to its equivalent name. So tat me becomes tan me kshemataram bhavet. Okay, any more to recite it? And if anyone even wants to recite it again, you're very welcome before we go on to Shanti Deva.
Okay, I will chant it again.
Okay, please, Madeleine, carry
Yes.
on.
Yaji mama pratikarama shastrapanayaha dhartarashtra rane hanyustan me kshemataram bhavet.
Okay, right. So, unless anyone wants to do more on this, I'll call up the Bodhicharya Avatara. Come on, Bodhicharya, here we are. Right. Guno parascha dukkasya yat samvegan madachutihi samsarishu chakarunyam papad bhitir jines praha. Now I'm just going to change this. This should be the visarga, which then Guno parascha dukkasya yat samvegan madachutihi samsarishu chakarunyam papad bhitir jines praha. So gunaha, of which it means, well, the original meaning was actually as a string, and the string, for example, of a stringed instrument is a guna. And then its meaning proliferated greatly, and it came to mean a quality or a merit. And if you are nirguna, means you're worthless, you have no qualities. So apara means, actually there's an ambiguity here, an ambiguity that you don't get that often in Sanskrit unless it's done deliberately. But I don't think this is deliberate. So apara can mean two things. They're two separate words that I've explained in the note below. There's the prefix apa, meaning away or off, and apara means more away, and therefore just means another, really ordinary, another. But also para, cognate with our English word far, when we get para, meaning the far shore, prajna, param ita, the wisdom gone to the far shore, sometimes translated as the wisdom gone beyond paramita. This is para, meaning remote. So it's cognate with our English word far away. And so apara would mean there's nothing beyond it. So it can mean peerless or unparalleled, or simply mean another. In this particular verse, I think it's just take your pick. It's impossible to tell from the text which one is meant. So it's just treating us as another. So guna aparacha by Santi becomes guno parascha. So and another merit and another advantage, dukkasya, and another advantage of dukkha, another advantage of suffering. Yet could mean just the same word as in English. Another advantage of suffering is that, and the word yet could have exactly that same meaning here. Samvegan mada chutihi. So is that there is a mada chutihi. Mada is a word. It started off actually meaning joy, and then exuberant joy, and then it came to mean everything that's the opposite of self-collected mindfulness. So mada. And it's actually become quite an important word in Buddhism, or its derivatives have. Let me call up the. Have I dealt with it here? Oh, there you go. No, I didn't. Okay. Calling up the iPad again. Here we are. It's from the root mad, which could be cognate with our English word mad, because there's an element in it of a disturbance of the mind. Initially, the idea of becoming overcome by joy and then kind of getting carried away, that you no longer have control over yourself. And you have pramada, which is the pramada, the verbal noun from the root mad. You can have mada and mada, but with the verbal prefix with a long a, pramada. You could almost translate it as madding forth. It's the mind kind of charging on in pursuit of its desires or fears. Is pramada, and of course in Pali, pamada, without the r. There is an entire chapter of the Dhammapada, which we did a while ago, which is the Appamada Vaggo. So in Sanskrit, the opposite of pramada is apramada. And in Pali, as you would expect, appamada. And these are qualities that are very much spoken about in Buddhist literature. As I said, there's an entire chapter called the Appamada Vaggo, the chapter on appamada in the Dhammapada. It's the opposite of pamada. It's the equivalent, roughly, of self-collected mindfulness. Appamada. And the opening words of this chapter 2 of the Dhammapada, is in Pali, appamado amatapadam. Appamado amatapadam, which in Sanskrit would be apramada amritapadam. So non-pramada, like mindfulness, self-collectedness, is the abode of the deathless, the amrita padam in Sanskrit, amata padam in Pali. it's more common in the literature to see the word pramada than just mada on its own. But here, Shanti Devi uses the word mada on its own, but clearly with the meaning of pramada. The intoxication is mental heedlessness, lack of mindfulness. So, Shuti then means falling, but it more specifically means falling away from a particular state. So, for example, if somebody through his good karma is in a particular heaven, is in a particular Brahmaloka, for example, when his good karma is exhausted and he falls back down from that state, that would be known as his Brahmaloka Chuti, his falling from that state. It's from the root chu, to fall. Sorry, here we are, iPad. Here we are. The root chu, to fall. And it makes a verbal noun, chuti, which is what we have in this verse, mada chuti. So here, so the advantage, it says, another advantage of suffering is that there is this chuti of your mada. In other words, that your intoxicated heedlessness, your lack of mindfulness is destroyed, is no more. There's a chuti, a falling away of it. It makes its past participle chuta, so if you are fallen from a particular state, it is chuta. And if you have had a particular status, which is often described as a pada, and you have lost that status, you are padachyuta, literally status fallen. In other words, you've been knocked off your perch. You no longer have that status. You've been struck off. I even seem to recall, Mandira, many, many years ago when I was studying Hindi, that I've seen the word padjut, meaning lost your status. Would you recognize that word in Hindi? Padachyuta, padachyut.
I'm not aware of this word.
Okay. Maybe I am imagining it. It was a very long time ago. So anyway, so the pada then, I'm sorry, say again?
It seems to be a very pure Hindi word.
It would have been an extremely pure, taken straight from Sanskrit literature. So this word pada, by the way, it's from our root pad, originally meaning to, the primitive root meaning is to go. It's cognate with our word foot. And so pada can mean, the original meaning was, you know, your footing, your status, your place. And then later on it came to mean kind of words, as in the Dhammapada, for example. It's one of these polysemic, one of these words with a lot of meanings. But going back to where we were, so Gunoparashidukkasya, another advantage of suffering, yet samvegan madachuti. This is samvega. This is the ablative samvegat, and we got that's the ablative form. And the final t by santi before the m becomes an r. That's why it's samvegan madachuti. That there is a falling away, a disappearance of your heedless mental intoxication. Samvegat, by reason of this samvega. This is the ablative of cause. In other words, your madachuti, the disappearance, the falling away of the mada, is actually caused by this samvega. Now, samvega Again, it's almost a technical term, certainly in the Pali Buddhist literature. The samvega is sometimes translated as that sense of urgency. Like the sense of urgency, no time to hang about. We saw that, those of you who were with me in the early stages of chapter 7 of the Bodhicharyavatara. We were being chided for our lack of samvega, thinking, oh, I'll do that later. I'll become good later. I'll do all my virtuous, diligent practice later. I've got plenty of time. Oh, says Shantideva. Not so. You are lacking in samvega, the sense of urgency. Sorry, just shut the builders around me. 1 second. Okay there, Gregor?
Yeah, I
Okay. Okay, fine. Sorry about that. I've got a builder in the house. It's the root. The root is vij. Sorry, I've lost my iPad. Here we are. Is vij. The root is vij. This is a very entertaining word. It makes its verbal noun in vega. We see this phenomenon quite often. Shuch, shoka, vij, vega, yuj, yoga, things like that. So vega originally meant a swift motion, and it has within it the idea of life, like quickness. When it came into Latin, it referred to vegetable life. So in fact, our word vegetable and its root vig are actually from the same root. So in Latin, it just means, as I said, vegetable life. In English, it became quick. So the vig meant rapid motion. The became a quirk, so quick. And of course, in older English, we speak of the living and the dead. In older English, we talk about the quick and the dead. And it's from that same root. And if you touch someone to the quick, it means referring to an open wound. You touch somebody where it really hurts, not on the epidermis, but on the inside of an open wound, touching somebody to the quick. So, in fact, okay, you might be able to help me a little bit, Paladin, here. I know you're in the next county south, but I think in Yorkshire, they talk about being right wick about it, meaning be quick about it, get on with it. So this Yorkshire expression wick meaning quick. And in fact, the wick of a candle, the wick is the live part of the candle, is the old meaning of the wick. So the vega and the wick of the candle, be right wick about it, the quick and the dead, all from the same root. The samvega doesn't. Hello, somebody.
Yes, it's just me. I don't understand. I don't know this expression, the quick and the dead, so I don't really understand what it means.
Okay. It's disappeared from modern English, but the word quick used to mean, now it means rapid or fast, doing something quickly as opposed to slowly. But an older meaning of the word quick was living as opposed to dead. So in older English, we have the expression the quick and meaning the living and the dead. This meaning of quick has dropped out of modern English, but you will, just occasionally you have it in this old-fashioned expression, the quick and the dead. So its meaning is quick, meaning alive, has disappeared from modern English, but go back, I don't know, 3 or 4 centuries or something, and then it was a regular part of the language then. And he shall come again to, and forget what the King James, no, to judge the living and the dead, isn't it? Anyway, so don't worry about it. It's just old-fashioned English. So the samvega is getting quicked up about it, getting, it's the sense of urgency, like suddenly kind of becoming alive. Wow, there is not much time. It is urgent. Get on with the practice. Defeat the defilements, defeat the kleshas. Turn quickly to virtue. So that's what he's saying. If you experience suffering, there is an advantage of it, because it will suddenly make you alive to the dangers, alive to the necessity of doing the practice. So guna aparashya, so gunoparashya dukkasya, and another advantage, or an unsurpassed advantage of dukkha, of pain, of suffering, is that yat samvegan madachuti, from the samvega, from the sense of urgency, being aroused to action. The alarm gets sounded in your mind. That's the samvega, the sense of urgency. There is then this falling away of mother. By the way, this chu, the root chu, could be cognate with the Latin cad, meaning to fall, as in decadent, for falling away, and decay as well, likely to be from that same root. So from the sense of samvega, you get the madachuti, the falling away of the mada. Sansarishu chakarunyam, a sense of compassion towards those in samsara. Papad bhitihi, a fear of evil. Notice this bhiti. Another word for fear is bhaya. You can have bhaya and bhiti, with essentially the same meaning of fear. You have the fear of doing evil, and jine spreha, which is the jine spreha, the jinna, the conqueror. It's one of the other words for the Buddha. And spreha means, how have I translated here? A longing, yeah. Spreha, in fact, in Latin, it appears in Latin as sperare, meaning to hope, and desperate means hopeless. Speranza in Italian, hope. So it means a longing for so all you really want after that, once you've seen things as they are, once you've had the sense of samvega, all you have now is this longing for the jinna, the conqueror, meaning the Buddha.
James, could you explain that? Why is that word in a compound, like those 3 words, conqueror, fear, and evil? Oh, the conqueror of fear. I got it, yeah.
They aren't the samsara karma papad bhiti. Oh, these are all fully declined here.
Okay.
It's not so. You could say papa bhiti. You could equally well have said that, like evil fear, meaning fear of evil, or you could conjugate it, fully separate them out, and it takes the ablative. In English, we're afraid of something. In Sanskrit and Pali, you take the ablatives papad bhitir. You could equally have said for this jine spreha, it could have been put as jina spreha, as a samasa, as a compound word, but it's separated out.
So it's only for Sandy that they've put up. That's only for, like, they've only just put them together, squished them together for the Devanagari.
Ah, you're looking at the papad bhitir jine spreha. Yeah, they are not compounds. What I've done here in the first box, you can see it's just as it's written in correct Devanagari there.
Mhm.
The second box, I have very accurately and slavishly followed the exact way that the Devanagari appears. And because, so look at Papa, look at the D and the B are run together there, simply because they are run together in the Devanagari, the B. And equally the R, sorry, oops. The R and the J are written together there simply because in the spelling of Devanagari, they are run together.
So is this right? The reason that they're not you know that it's not a compound is because they're all in different, like one's ablative, one is nominative, the other is locative. That's how you know that it's not a compound. Is that right?
That is exactly how you know.
Okay.
So, for example, say this were written, say it were not compounded, you could equally well say, as I've said, Papabhiti as a samasa, as a compound. And in the Devanagari script, you just run words together anyway. And if it's a compound word or if it's a non-compounded word, it's just the conventions of spelling wouldn't let you know. So if you saw written in Devanagari just Papabhiti, it would be written as one word because it's written without a gap.
And without a D.
Without a D, because you see,
Yes.
let me show you here. That's it's an important point you've raised. You need to get. So I'm just trying to. Oops. Oh, I'm having a problem with my. Here we are. There we are. iPad again. There we are. So we have our Papa, sin or evil, and Bhiti, fear. So fear of doing evil, you can express that equally well in Sanskrit. You can do it as a compound. Papabhiti. Notice that I've put a hyphen when I've written it in Roman script, simply just to, as an aid to students. It's commonly done.
But in the Devanagari, that would be all written together. There wouldn't be a gap.
There would not be a gap. It would be written as one word. So I'm reading it here. So Papabhiti. So here is the gap between the words, but because it's a samasa, because it's a compound, it's written as one in Devanagari.
James, how do you decide to run it together in Devanagari if it's not a compound?
Okay, there is a general rule that where you get a word ending in a consonant and the next word beginning in a consonant, so you've got two consonants together, mostly in Devanagari, in fact, almost always in Devanagari, you can do a conjunct consonant. Where you do not run them together, see where words end in a vowel, samsarishu cha karunyam. The word ends in a vowel there. You see where I've got my cursor.
Mm.
So we've got a vowel and then a next word beginning in a consonant. You leave a gap there.
Mm.
If you look back in the ancient manuscripts, there is no gap. Rather, like if you look at the ancient inscriptions in Latin and Greek, they tend not to leave a gap between the words. But the way it's written in modern times, you get word ending in a vowel, next word beginning with a consonant. Here, the consonant got the inherent cha. Okay, word ending in a consonant, next word beginning with a vowel, so you leave a gap. The same applies if a word ends in anuswara, the one written with that dot. You can leave a gap. Now what happens? You've got samsara karunyam. But the bihiter, you've got a word ending in a consonant, and the next one starting in a consonant. So the Devanagari will, as it were, compel you to run those two consonants together in a ligature, in a combined consonant. And that's what we have where I've highlighted that the d and the p. So you can see.
But you can get an anuswara in the middle of a string.
In the middle of a string.
As in the line above.
Okay. If a word you can actually. If you get a complete word ending in anuswara, as in karunyam, that's a word ending in anuswara, then a new word beginning in with a consonant, you leave a gap. But you can get an anuswara in the middle of a word if it's of itself a compounded word. We get samsarishu. That's from samsara. And samvega. So what's happened there is, let me call up the iPad again.
Oh, right. I think I'm with it now.
You've got the prefix.
I've got it now, yeah.
Okay. You've got that prefix sam.
Mm.
When you combine it as samsara, you actually will write it now as an anuswara. So that be written as samsara.
Mm.
That's because it's treated as one single word. You don't write the samsara as if they were two words. They're treated as one word. So then you often do get this anuswara in the middle of a word, and in the line above, exactly the same phenomenon with samvega. See where I've highlighted there,
Yeah.
and you get the samvega where my cursor is there.
Yeah. No, it's a bit silly there.
So you get the gap if you've got an independent word ending in anuswara, then you make a gap.
I mean, another question which you might deal with further down is how do you get samsari shu?
Okay. I will explain that.
James, can I just ask before we move on this point?
Of course, Teresa.
Papa BT, how do you know that when you put those two words together, you're saying fear of evil, not evil fear as a noun? Or is that just, you don't know, you have to use the context? Or the order of the words, or what?
You mean if you use it as a compound?
Yeah, if you say Papa BT, like just Papa BT together, you said that could be the fear of evil. But could it also be as a noun, evil fear as a sort of a noun?
It could.
Okay, so
and that you can get ambiguities in Sanskrit.
Okay, so that's okay. That's just thanks.
And there are different names for these compounds. For example, if it was papa bhiti, an evil fear, that is a karamadharya compound. It's like an adjective noun compound. So papa is treated as an adjective qualifying fear, an evil fear. But it could also, depending on context, be a tatpurusha compound. Bhiti, fear, What kind of fear? Fear of what? Papabhiti, fear of evil. So you are right there. You could actually, you can have the same kind of ambiguity in English, in certain English compounds, where you have to rely on context to ascertain which it is. Mostly our compounds in English are kind of set phrases, so we know what's meant. I can't think of any at the moment. But we could almost invent it. We could just put Papabhiti into English. And there the giveaway in writing it wouldn't be apparent, but the giveaway would be the way we would pronounce it. We could say that an evil fear with equal stress on both would mean adjective noun, an evil, but an evil fear would mean a fear of evil. Oh, I remember one. It was somebody. I remember I was talking to somebody who was in, and there was a film called the Lady Killers. Some of you may remember it. Those of you who are old enough to remember the Lady Killers. Now, because of the stress, if you just write it, Lady Killers, does it mean female murderers, or does it mean people who kill ladies in an emotional sense? Now, if you just write it with a hyphen, and in writing you can't tell which is meant, but in pronunciation, the lady killers would mean killers who are ladies. Lady killers equals stress, but the lady killers, with stress on the first one, would mean the killers of ladies. So there we do get the ambiguity in the compound. And it can have fatal consequences.
Maybe if the oral tradition, I wonder then, would they have done that? But like the lady killers, they've done that to identify the compound when they were reciting.
They would in Vedic, but not in classical Sanskrit.
Okay.
And in Vedic, you had a tone, a bit like in classical Greek, but not in Homeric Greek. You actually had upper and lower tones, which disappeared in classical Greek in the same way that it disappeared in classical Sanskrit. And to get it wrong can actually have fatal consequences. Have I told you about Twashta? Twashta was one of these powerful sadhu figures who had much developed his powers and his ability to recite mantras. And Twashta managed to fall out with the great god Indra. And by the way, Indra, not all these Hindu gods are kind of nice, divine, benign people. You get quite a bit like the Greek pantheon, you know. There's quite a lot of nastiness goes on. Anyway, Twashta developed a very severe grudge against Indra. But he reckoned that he could get away with having Indra killed because he was able to create very powerful mantras. So he created a mantra whereby his son was he gave a blessing to his son when he was born, that when he grew up, he would be the slayer of Indra.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, iPad now. And this just shows you how, I'm glad you've raised that point because it could save your life, literally. Now, seriously, bear with me. Indra, Shatru. In classical Sanskrit, the word Shatru came to mean enemy, but the primitive meaning was just the killer, somebody who kills. So Twashta created this powerful mantra that his son, I forget the name of the son now, the son would be Indrashatru. Indrashatru. High tone on the E. The Indra slayer. But silly Twashta made a grammatical error. Clearly a man who had not been attending these classes. So instead of saying Indrashatru, he said, look where I put the high tone there, Indrashatru. So Indrashatru, the Indra slayer, Indrashatru means Indra the slayer. Oh. So in his mantra, he prayed that Indra would be the slayer, the killer of his son, instead of his son being the killer of Indra. Now, the problem is these mantras, once you pronounce them, they have their own power. And once he pronounced that mantra with the wrong stress, Indra later on killed his son, all because he got the grammar wrong. So that shows you, so thank you, Teresa, for raising that point, that there is an ambiguity in these compounds that can have disastrous and even fatal consequences if they are mispronounced or misinterpreted. Poor Twashta, all for a grammatical error. Mind you, he ought to have known better. He was an inventor and a writer of great mantras, a singer of great mantras. And the answer is yes, you do not infrequently find that there is an ambiguity in these compounds. Normally you can work it out, but sometimes just you have to live with the ambiguity as it is. So now who was asking me about samsarishu? Was it you, Roger? Samsarishu. Here we go. So we have the.
Can't see the iPad.
Sorry. Thank you. We have the root sri, which is one of the several words meaning to go. It's more like to proceed or to go. There are several words meaning to go. Gam, I, ya, and so on. So sri means to go. And it makes a verbal noun, sara. That which goes, the going, or that which goes, or that which moves. It's also come to mean actually sara is as the sap of a plant or the sap of a tree, and it moves through the plant and gives it life. And so it's come to mean the essence of something, the sara, which moves within it. Now, if you put our prefix sam there, we get our word samsara. So the sam here has the meaning of a completed action. So samsara means going, but going again and again and again. So it's the samsara is the idea of a series of cycle going round again and again, going again, going again. That's samsara. If you are a person in samsara, you are just rub it up. You are a samsarin. Just how you can make an agent noun out of another noun, as in yoga, yogin, a samsara, a samsarin, somebody who's in samsara. Now, The words ending in, and to state the obvious, they belong to the consonantal declension. So, for example, the accusative would be samsarin, samsarinam, the accusative. The instrumental samsarina. Now, the plural is samsarina. That's normal. This ending for the consonantal declension. Yogis will be yoginaha. Yogin, stem yogin, masculine singular, yogi, accusative yoginam, instrumental yogina, go to the plural, yoginaha. Now,
Locative plural then.
so the locative plural ends in su.
Yeah.
Locative plural of words ending in a is eshu. Among the Buddhas, buddheshu. Among all the Buddhas, sarveshu buddheshu. In cities, nagareshu. Among men, nareshu, the eshu ending. For the consonantal declension, there's no vowel before it, just su. Now, it is a feature of the declension of nouns ending in that before the su, the n drops out. So you don't say samsarinshu, but samsarishu. So simply and it's regular. Living among the yogis would be yogishu. So there we are, just the locative plural, regular, of nouns ending in.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
There we are.
James, can I ask something that
Please.
I don't understand? So Sarah would be going. I don't understand why completion of an action, as you say, some denotes completion. How completion, to me, completion doesn't equal repetition. Continuous. So I don't follow the logic of the.
Okay, fine. No, perfectly good question. Normally, the some means the original meaning of it is with. Vasa, living, some vasa, living with. It came to mean also the completion of a single action. The purna, sampurna. As in Latin, pletus, completus. It's cognate with the Latin word com, meaning together or a completed action. So samsara originally meant just a cycle, a completed going. But it was by further extension that it came to mean a series of completed goings. But you're right to point that out. Thank you for that. That it was originally just a completed, a single cycle, and then by later extension of meaning, it came to mean the again and again and again.
Thank you.
Okay, so hopefully that's clear now.
I have another question.
Yes, please, come in.
You said from 3, then we do Sara, which is a verbal noun. I'm wondering about the verbal noun. Is there any other way to make a noun in Sanskrit than coming from a verb?
Oh, goodness me. Yes, quite a few.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Just as in English, there are, and particularly with our Latin and Greek roots as well, there are lots of different ways of forming a verbal noun. So equally, for example, let me just turn the page here. You can make a verbal noun from a root, by, for example, just adding ti, for example. We have in chuti, we have the root chu, chuti. a
Yeah,
verbal
so
noun?
I might have not phrased my question correctly. What I mean, is there any other noun than verbal noun? Because here again, it's coming from a root. So is there another way to make a noun than coming from a root?
Oh, a noun that coming from a root.
Is there something else than a verbal noun? I don't know that in French grammar, you call it a verbal noun.
Yes.
And I don't know, is it you would call any noun a verbal noun, or is there a different type of noun?
No, I wouldn't. Okay.
I'm sorry, it's my
okay.
both my
That's
English
an
and
interesting
Sanskrit
point.
grammar is bad.
Okay, no, I think I take your point. Sanskrit tends to be root-based, and you get a large quantity of nouns that are actually based on a verbal root. So in Sanskrit, almost the default mode is that words are built from verb roots.
Okay, yeah.
And many words that say that modern French or English speakers would regard as straight, ordinary nouns as distinct from a verb would, if you analyzed it in Sanskrit, actually be a verbal noun, a noun directly coming from a verb, like samsat or samsat. Ask an English or French speaker what part of speech is samsara, and they'll say, well, that's a noun. Okay, it is a noun, but it's a noun derived from a verb, so it's a verbal noun. And you get lots and lots of nouns that actually don't have a verbal root.
Okay.
For example, let's take Nara and Nagara. Nara, a man or a person; Nagara, a city. As far as I'm aware, there's no verbal root. These are pure nouns.
Okay, you answered my question. Thank you.
Okay. But that's an interesting point. But you will find that if you do the etymological analysis of Sanskrit words, the majority of them can be traced back to a verbal root. I mean, for example, in French, le commencement de quelque chose, so that would be distinctly a verbal noun, du verbe commencer, le commencement. But le début, would you regard that as a verbal noun? Or is
débuter? Débuter is a verb.
Débuter is the verb, but début, are you going to look at that as a straight and ordinary noun, a concrete noun, or a verbal noun?
Yes,
How would you make the difference?
What's the answer to the question?
but also in Latin, it's not necessarily that they come from a root, which is a verb. So it's like it's chicken and egg. You don't know if it's because of some other provenance. It's not necessarily a root verb.
It's exactly so. It is not necessarily a root. For example, let's take or not necessarily from a verb root. Let me. Oops, sorry, lost me. Never mind.
We can't see your iPad, James.
Can't see the iPad. Okay, I've just lost my iPad page. Here we are. Maybe just as well. I can't remember what I was going to write then. Was it? Oops, sorry, what was happening? Yeah, I mean there are. I would say that probably there's a far larger number of words in Sanskrit that are distinctly traceable back to a verbal root than in Latin. I mean, I have no idea what the numbers are, but I just get that general sense. And when we're looking at the etymology, all the really good etymological words, we can trace it back. It's almost always to a verbal root. So that seemed to be the primitive way that the Indo-European languages operated themselves. For example, if you looked at the word rata, for example, Ratha, which originally meant a wheel and then came to mean a chariot. That looks like pure noun. And if you look in the equivalent of Ratha is Latin rota, which we have in English as a rotor and rotary, but the word just means wheel in Latin. And that's the one that, you know, it's the same word that became la roue in French, meaning a wheel. Ruota in Italian. So that looks like pure noun. And say, well, hey, why are you saying that that's a verbal noun? Okay, it's a pure noun, but we're now treading into the area of what is a verbal noun, what is not, because rata can actually be traced back to the root re, meaning to go. And the word arta, for example, arta, meaning one's aim, one's objective, is from the same root re, to go. The arta means your destination, the place you are going. So on the face of it, it looks like a pure noun, but in fact it's a noun derived from a primitive verbal root. I would tend to say then, Dominique, that the arta is not a verbal noun. I think I would prefer to use a verbal noun for the name of an action, the description of an action, the doing of something. So the fact that we have something that looks like a pure noun, like these two words, rata and arta, we can derive them both from primitive verbal roots, but that doesn't make them verbal nouns. So the verbal noun is the name of an action, le nom de l'action, as it were. I don't know if that helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, good.
I don't. Sorry, I don't see why you couldn't call those verbal nouns. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking from any position of expertise here, but just it seems to me they're derived from a root, a verbal from.
Okay. It may be that it's just because we have an exact, strict academic definition of a verbal noun. That's what I think we need, and I think that you could describe, give the meaning of that word. You could define that word in two different ways. The narrower way would be a noun that describes an action. The manner of your going would be, so the going would be a verbal noun.
But rata, as in a wheel, is action of wheeling, of going, of moving. So it is connected.
So, yeah, so then I wouldn't, if we use this strict, narrow definition of a verbal noun, simply a noun that refers to an action. That's the narrower definition. You could take a wider definition of it, and that would mean any noun that's derived from a verb root. I don't feel comfortable with that definition, because if you talk about a rata, you are talking about a distinct thing, like a physical object, a rata meaning a wheel, or by extension, a chariot.
But the quality of the wheel is that it moves.
The quality of the wheel is that it moves.
So it refers to an action.
But so where you got the word wheel, the word rata from, originally from rit, meaning to go or to move. So that's the kind of historical origin of it. But I think it's a question of popular, that's just our perception as speakers. Are you talking about the movement of the wheel? Movement, the manner of moving, we think of as a verbal noun. The wheel we think of as very much a concrete noun, even though the word wheel comes from a Proto-Indo-European root, quel, meaning to turn around. We should also get whirl, by the way. So whirling and wheel come from our same root. So we don't actually have a strict definition in the way we're talking now what a verbal noun is. But I would prefer to keep to, not saying I'm definitively right about it, but for the sake of so we know what we mean by these words, a verbal noun, I will use that to mean the description of an action. So samsara, for example, is a verbal noun. It is the process. It's a process, the process of going round and round.
James, in terms of etymology,
I'll be right with you, Mandira. So, Roger, what was that?
just maybe shouldn't pursue this, but in terms of etymology, so-called pure nouns, could it be simply that the origin in a verb has been lost in the mists of time?
That's perfectly possible. I mean, a huge amount of work has been done in the reconstruction of Proto-Indo-European roots, but the process isn't complete. And so it's perfectly possible that in fact, it's almost inevitable that a lot has been lost in the mists of time.
Okay, thanks.
So although we can, I mean, for example, let's look at English. If I said, look at the word wheel, are we talking about a verbal noun or a concrete noun here? Well, obviously it's a concrete noun. A wheel's a wheel, it's a thing. Okay, it can be traced back to the Indo-European root quel, meaning to turn. That doesn't make it a verbal noun. I think it's become so remote from its verb root origin that we no longer perceive it like that. Whereas we talk about movement, our movement here clearly derived from the verb to move, and therefore we can accept that movement is a verbal noun, the name of an action. So you are describing a thing happening rather than a concrete thing. So yes, Mandira, please.
So this is related to the word artha.
Artha, yes.
Yes. So in Hinduism, when a person dies and when his dead body is taken to the cremation ground, there is this term that we use called arthi.
Arthi.
Arthi, which is the dead body, which is kept on a wooden or a bamboo plank.
Yeah.
The cremation ground, which I'm assuming is to do with the meaning that you explained of the term artha here. That is.
I didn't know that. Let me just check this. So let me just and that we Artim.
No, it's arthi. There is no N at the end.
Okay. Would it be, is it made on the same measure as yogin and yogi? It's just the way you look it up, because this is the Memory Williams, which is just organized by the words ending in E, in E. You look up under an in.
Correct.
So one who wants or desires anything, the arti, because your artha is an objective, an aim. If you're an arti, sometimes it means the beggar, somebody with an objective, something in mind, something that he wants, longing for, libidinous, one who asks for a girl in marriage, or a beggar, something a plaintiff, prosecutor, servant, follower. I had not been, let me just see if there's a separate arti, though I don't think there is. No match is found. No, it would be artin. Let me see if I can research further on that, but it's the word used for, is it the word for the dead body itself that's about to be cremated?
That's right.
Let me just see if I can find. That's an I hadn't come across this one before. Let me see what I can find about that. Is that the word that you would use in modern Hindi for the corpse, the body after death, but before cremation is the arti?
Yes, absolutely.
If we can just follow that back, would mean that he's looking for something, wanting something, or the arti, or going to a certain the one who's got a destination to go to, because the artha, where your aim, what you're aiming towards. So you can't say he's not going anywhere. He jolly well is going somewhere. He's now proceeding through the process of cremation and the afterlife. So he's somebody who is now proceeding towards a destination. I'm just thinking out loud there, but that's a possible logical explanation of that word. But I'll see what more I can find on it, and if you also see what more you can find on it, Mandira, that would be interesting. But this artha, so just before we wind up,
I have another question when you have a moment.
Yeah, please. Let me just deal with this little. Oh, where's me? Here we are. So ri. So I said from ri we get rata, which is just has the feel very much of a concrete noun. It's difficult to describe it as a verbal noun in the strict sense because it's clearly not the name of an action, even though it comes from a root meaning moving. Artha, by contrast, it's still in the perception of most people would be regarded as a concrete noun, but it's a little bit more, it's more of a mental thing. It's where you're going, your destination, what you're aiming for. So that's kind of almost on the cusp between a concrete noun and a verbal noun. Except, of course, in the meaning of wealth, because artha, it means the original meaning of where you're going, your destination, artha, and your goal. And in the Metta Sutta, Karaniam Atta Kusalena, sound with Karaniam Artha Kushalena, skilled in the goal or skilled in his going. It also means wealth, because that towards which that the people aim for is wealth. In fact, you get Arthashastra, which is the word for the science of economics. I think in modern Hindi as well, you use for economics is Arthashastra. Is that right, Mandira?
It's called Arthashastra.
Arthashastra, right. So literally the science of wealth. And there's an ancient Sanskrit text, the Arthashastra. I forget who wrote it. Which was written by the minister of a king, description on how to run the economy of the kingdom. It was the Arthashastra, literally the science of wealth.
It was by Kautilya.
Kautilya, well done. Yes, Kautilya, thank you for that. Well done. But there it would be difficult to call it a verbal noun because although clearly you can see how it's derived from a verb, it's got very much a concrete meaning. So I'm not proposing to get into a fight about the definition of a verbal noun. It's just using my but I'll see if I can turn up in anything about it. But it's just that even things that we regard as solid concrete nouns are traceable in most cases in the European languages back to a verbal root. That's how our linguistic forefathers thought. That's how they created their own language. It was originally a language of movement. The most primitive words were clearly verbs, and nouns derived from. But it's very, very interesting the way it happened. Okay, there we are then. So we shall resume next time with a recap of this first.
Sorry, James,
sorry. Yes, please come in. Yes.
For next time. But I'm just wondering because we said that SR is going, but also R is going. So I'm just wondering if they're the same or different, or what's the story there?
Okay, I can deal with that right now.
Okay.
So the root r is clearly a verb, and it's one of the verbs meaning to go. The other two very common words meaning to go are eat and gum. Eat, gum, re. They will have pretty much the same meaning. And that is clearly a verb, and a verb you can make nouns out of. I won't go into now whether we call them verbal nouns or not. You can make nouns out of verbs in several different ways. And one of the numerous ways is adding a ta onto the end, or sometimes with an a as well. So, for example, from the root sham, meaning literally calming, you have the shamata, Shamatha. Okay, so in fact, in Pali, samatha, it's the form of meditation, or the kind of the concentration, as opposed to vipassana and samatha in Sanskrit, vipassana, shamatha. So is this that is one way of making a noun from a verb. As to whether we call shamatha a verbal noun or not, I'm not going to go into that quite. Not maybe one of those that's on the cusp. I'm tending to say it's a verbal noun because it's a process, and from re plus ta, by a process of internal sandhi, that just makes artha. So artha is a noun with the suffix ta derived from the verb root re. Re plus ta makes artha. So artha is clearly traceable back to that verbal root re.
Okay, I get
So
it.
I hope that if
No, it does. For next time, I'm just saying that the SR, the root SR, also means going.
it does, there's more than one word meaning going. The root SR.
Okay, fine. So that's fine. That's what you're saying. So it's
so I don't mislead you. Yeah, here we are. This is the root SR. In many William, look it up with an S and a capital R. So subdotted re, sarati, to run, to flow, to move, to go. There are several of these roots that have this movement of going, running, proceeding. Char is another, char and chal. Charati, chalati. In fact, in modern Hindi, it's come to chalna. Chulogai.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. So I will bid you goodbye and hope to see all of you next week. Good. Thank you very much then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you
Thank you.
See you next
Thank
week.
you. Bye,
Bye then.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.